he want to kill him?
The birthright was stolen?
Exactly. So he cheated him out of his blessing. And what other reason? What is Esau sending out ahead of himself? What does he know is coming? Anybody know? Rebecca.
An army of 400 men.
Yeah, he's sending out an army of 400 men. So it's not clear whether this is going to be an entirely friendly encounter. So how does Jacob deal with this rather uncomfortable situation? What are some of the things he does to prepare himself, his family, etc., for this meeting? What does he do as far as what he sends out to Esau, what he does to prepare his family?
Oh, we send some gifts.
Yes.
He sends a lot of gifts because he thinks money cures everything. Ain't that something? I still thought it up right away. Does money cure everything, or effort does? You know?
It couldn't hurt, right? In this case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice to see some nice check in the account before the week's expenses.
Okay. Anybody else?
Gotta lower my hands.
Larry.
Well, as a defensive maneuver, he divides up his family in two. So if one is attacked, the other has time to get away, maybe.
Exactly. So actually, let's read about that. Can I have a reader? Would you?
And we have a page?
Yes, I'm sorry. Genesis 32, 8-9, and it's on the Plout on page 219, and the Women's Commentary on page 186.
19.
So 8-9. Do I have a reader?
I'll read.
Larry, yeah, go ahead.
Jacob was greatly frightened. In his anxiety, he divided the people with him and the flocks and herds and camels into two camps, thinking, if Esau comes to one camp and attacks it, the other camp may yet escape.
Exactly. Okay. What else does he do? Any other thoughts about what he does in advance? He divides them into two camps. Does he pray?
I would think he would.
Yeah, well, why don't we see? Who's my second reader? Also on page 219. I'm going to read 32, chapter 32, verse 10 through 13. Anyone? Diane?
Is this the part 10? Then Jacob said, God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, eternal, who says to me, return to your native land, and I will make things go well with you. I am unworthy of all the proofs of mercy and all the faithfulness that you have shown your servant. For I have crossed this Jordan with my walking stick, and now I have become two camps. Keep going?
Yep, keep going.
Save me, I pray, from my brother's hand, from Esau's hand. I am afraid of him, lest he advance on me and strike me, mother on child. Yet you said, I will make things go well with you and make your descendants like the grains of sand along the seashore, which are too many to be counted. Go on.
Great. Yep, no, that's it. So he's calling upon God to save him. And conveniently, he's also reminding God, remember, you promised you were going to make me this great people, right? So in other words, don't let me get destroyed by my brother on the way there. So, all right, so he prays. One of you mentioned that he sends gifts ahead. How does he do that exactly? Rebecca?
He sends a servant.
He sends a servant. Yes. And how many times does he, what is interesting is that he doesn't just send it to him once. He sends out several groups of messengers. Why does he do that?
To be sure that they get the gifts, to be sure that they receive them.
Mm-hmm. And what else? What does it make it look like?
Makes it look like he's willing to do anything to almost apologize, but not quite apologize.
Yeah. It makes his gift look bigger because he's sending it out in portions, right? It's not all coming at one time. So it sounds like it's a bigger gift. What does he send? Brad, yeah.
Well, I'm not answering your question, but I'm going back to your earlier question about the multiple gifts. You know, when you sent out a gift in the ancient world, you expected a return, a gift back. And the fact that Esau is not entering into a gift exchange has got to be very troubling for Jacob at that point.
Interesting.
So it heightens the suspense.
Good. Yeah. Rebecca.
What I find interesting is that Jacob sends him livestock, which is what Esau's trade is. He's a herder, right? So it's interesting that he sends livestock versus grain or gold or something else, robes, clothing.
Well, he kind of knows his customer, right? He knows what to get him. That's what Esau likes, right? The other thing I read that was interesting is, according to Nachmanides, the reason he sends livestock is because he's going to have to take care of these animals, and it's going to slow him down a little bit. So before he comes and attacks him and kills him, he'll have to deal with these animals. I thought that was kind of fascinating. Okay. So let's see what else we've got here. So he sends messengers. Does anybody know what the word messenger is in Hebrew? Come on, I know somebody knows.
Malachai?
Yes, malach. Who said that?
Marina.
Malach. So malach means a messenger. And if you can hear it, malach, it's same thing as vayishlach. He sends out messengers. And the other thing, what is the other meaning of the word messenger? Malach.
Angels.
An angel. Excellent. So it's not clear, whether these are messengers, just like regular messengers, or he's sending ahead angels. We find a lot of angels in this whole parsha. He, as we're not going to discuss today, but he struggles with an angel as he's leaving his home. As he's coming back, he struggles with another angel, and now we've got more angels in this portion. Okay, so what is another thing that Jacob does to prepare his family for this encounter? How does he order them? How does he divide them up? Who does he put in the front? And who does he put in the back? Marina.
The maids with their children are in the front, and Rebecca and Joseph are in the back. So the most precious to him he hides.
Yeah, it's it's pretty subtle the way he does that. So he puts the people he can dispense with in the front, and then periodically, as he goes back, it's the more and more and more favorite people. So this is just one more example of the way Jacob shows favoritism, and we're going to see as we go through the Torah what a problem this causes. All this, preferring one child or one part of the family over another. Donna.
And doesn't everybody do this with their children? Something like the firstborn as my son, the name carrier. I'm just saying I really don't show partiality, but then again, my firstborn, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
we won't tell him. Okay, well, so the other thing he's doing as he approaches is he bows, right? He keeps bowing. He bows down all the way to the ground. And we find that in Ugaritic documents from the second millennium BCE, we learn that bowing 7 times to the ground, this is the way you would approach a monarch, a king. So he is really, laying it on thick as far as don't be mad at me. I have a lot of respect for you. And what happens when he actually meets him? How does he speak with him? Anybody? Well, let's take a look. Janet, who would like to read?
Where?
We're gonna be reading chapter 33, verses 8 through 11. It's Plout in the page 222, and the women's commentary on page 189. Wait, 8 through 11. That's not right. I'm sorry, that is not correct.
No.
That is not correct. Why did I write that down?
I think it's exactly correct. It's their conversation between Esau and Jacob.
Oh, it's 33. I'm on the wrong page. Yeah. Yes. Okay, who's my reader? Mommy?
Okay, 33 number 8 is what you said?
33 verse 8 on page
Okay.
222.
And he asked, what do you mean by all this company which I have met? He answered, to gain my Lord's favor. Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Let what you have remain yours. But Jacob said, no, I pray you, it would do me this favor, accept from me this gift, for to see your face is like seeing the face of God, and you have received me favorably. Please accept my present, which has been brought to you, for God has favored me, and I have plenty. And when he urged him, he accepted.
Okay. So what's he doing here? What are the words that Jacob uses when he's talking to his brother?
That God did this, he didn't do it himself.
Mm-hmm. What are the words, the exact words? What does he call himself? What does he call Esau? Rebecca?
I think he's showing humility and humbleness.
Right. He keeps calling himself my servant. I'm your servant. I'm your servant. My Lord, my Lord. I think the last word that he says to him is my Lord. So, all right. And what do you think about this? Seeing your face is like seeing the face of God. Any thoughts about that?
Where is that? Here she's up.
Rebecca?
It would be true admiration and astonishment, perhaps even.
But also fear.
Yes, you're afraid to see the face of God. That's a good, really good point. And one other thing that's kind of fascinating is, how did Jacob come by the birthright to begin with? It was because his father, Isaac, could not see his face. So there's a certain irony to all of this. You know, we talk a lot about seeing your face, not being able to see your face, God hiding his face. And here's the other critical thing. He uses the word at least in Hebrew, I don't know if it does in this. Yes. Okay. So in at least in my translation, it says, please accept my gift of blessing that has been presented to you. And so it's interesting. He's basically like saying, I know I stole your blessing, but here I'm giving you a blessing back. So it's kind of his way of making amends with his brother. Okay. So from this whole story, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and it ends with Esau accepting the gift. So he's entering into this relationship by accepting the gift in this whole ritual of gift exchanges.
Excellent. Yes, exactly. And it's, if we notice, there's also sort of a Near Eastern custom in this time where you negotiate things. You say, oh, I'm going to give you this. Oh, no, 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 no. Please, no, I'm not going to take it. No, please take it. They go back and forth. And ultimately the person accepts the gift. It reminds us of when Abraham bought the cave at Machpelah, and the person who's selling him he says, I'm going to give you the land. And Abraham says, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be obligated to you in that way. And he's like, no, 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 really, I really respect you. You can have the land for nothing. And ultimately, Abraham does pay him. So there's this back and forth as far as giving things, negotiating things, that this all is very kind of in tune with the way things were in the ancient world.
And like you said, the key word there is obligation. You're obligating the other party once they've accepted that gift.
Exactly. So this may very well be an acceptance of his apology, if we look at it that way. So can I have another reader? Because let's talk about how Esau actually reacts to all of this. For Genesis chapter 33, verses 4 through 7. It's in Plouch on page 222 and the Women's Commentary on 189. 33, 4 to 7. So what happens? Rebecca.
But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And when Esau raised his eyes and saw the women and children, he said, who are these with you? Jacob said, the children whom God has graciously given your servant. Then the maids drew near, they and their children, and bowed down. Leah likewise and her children drew near and bowed down. And at last Joseph and Rachel drew near, and they bowed down.
Okay, so he embraces him. They cry on each other's shoulder. Now, first I want to talk about the kissing and the neck. Okay, he falls on his neck. If we remember from back a few portions ago, there's a prophecy that says Esau is going to break Jacob's yoke off of his neck eventually. What else happens with the neck? When Jacob is stealing the blessing, he puts goat skins on his neck, his smooth neck, to disguise himself. So there is definitely some significance to this falling on the neck thing. Now, the kissing thing, this is what I found really interesting. I was looking into this. So apparently the word for kiss is nashak, and the word for bite is nashach. So they're awfully close together. And there are rabbis that think that the reason Jacob is crying is because Esau bit him on the neck as opposed to kissing him on the neck. I don't know. What do you think? Is this a real reconciliation? Is it this reunited and it feels so good? Or is this just all a bunch of nonsense? What is your sense?
Well, I have an idea.
Okay, Susie.
Not that I'm familiar with any of this, but in present psychology, it seems like it's overkill.
Okay. How so?
Kissing him, gifts, it just feels like he's disingenuous. I'm sorry to have to say that, but that's my gut level feeling. He's
Okay.
going overboard.
Any other ideas about this? I think Risa had her hand up first and then Mommy.
I have in my notes on this page to take a look at the dots in the Hebrew text in the middle of verse 4. And then I have written over here, not that I'm so smart, but somebody said this to me before when I was doing this text. Did Esau's neck turn to marbles? And there's a miracle that he didn't bite him because of the marbles. Does that make sense to you? Did you ever hear that? That must be a midrash or something. But we don't know.
It's a midrash. I kind of like it. I think it's kind of fascinating, actually.
Do you have anything about what the dots are for?
I don't. I have a funny feeling that Rabbi Davids might have some input on that.
No, nothing that comes.
No.
The presence of the dots is an invitation for midrash.
Right.
Yes. I think that it's over the word. I think it's over the word that he kissed him. Right.
Yep. It's over.
And so maybe that's just it may be just a scribal error or something. He made a mistake and then he put these dots and then it got repeated over and over. Who knows? But yeah, it's very interesting.
Because it refers also to the word bite.
Anyone can read what Rashi says about the dots, although I don't know if it illuminates anything. It says dots.
Yes, Howard, tell us about the dots.
Dots are placed above the letters of the word, and a difference of opinion is expressed in the Baraitha of Sifrei as to whether these dots are intended to suggest, or as to what these dots are intended to suggest. Some explain the dotting as meaning that he did not kiss him with his whole heart, whereas Rabbi Simeon, the son of Johai, said, "Is it not well known that Esau hated Jacob? But at that moment, his pity was really aroused, and he kissed him with his whole heart."
Okay. Mommy, what do you think about all this?
Well, to me, people kill one another easily by strangling the neck. And I think by he bending down, it's significant that that's where he kissed him, not on the cheek, on the neck, meaning in his brain, he's thinking, I would love to kill you, love to get rid of you. But instead, I know better, so we'll just make this a little kiss or a little touch. But I think that's exactly what he was thinking at the time. I mean, it's possible that's what he was thinking.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Do we have anybody else in this group that's a little less cynical about this? Well, perhaps not. Rabbi, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, well, I see a little yellow hand. I think that's mine. Okay. The only thing I have to add here is a little bit of reality. You said you didn't want more cynicism. Maybe you should call somebody else.
Yeah, probably, but that's okay.
Probably, go ahead. Yeah, because reconciliation is not all that it's made up to be. Reconciliation is an agreement to go forward and to lower the barriers and so forth. But I know of no reconciliation in history where the bad blood has been forgotten. And so the notion of reconciliation
is
a little bit pushy. That these people who have hated each other, I forget how many years, couple dozen,
20 years.
20 years. They've hated each other for 20 years. And after an exchange of gifts and maybe a cow, they all are making good together? No, they're not. So I would just add that as a degree of warning, even as we approach the Middle East now.
Is right.
They can make peace, but that doesn't mean they're at peace.
I have to, okay, we've got a lot of hands up. I'm not sure what order we have these. I'm just going to do it the way I see it on the screen. Marina, then Larry, then Brad.
Thank you, Donna. Well, I think the positive in this episode is that the brothers didn't kill each other at the embrace, and that the 400 men with Esau did not annihilate Jacob's family.
Yeah,
and Esau invited Jacob to come and stay with him. Maybe he was thinking, I'll deal with you later, but Jacob made a pretense and moved to the other way. And so both of them are, well, the reconciliation in this instance is that there was no war. But both of them understand that this is called peace. It's not a family reunion.
Yes, okay. Yeah, you picked up on something really important, that at the end of this story, Esau says, oh, I'm going to accompany you on your way, part of the way. And Jacob says he blames it on the children and the women because they're going to we would slow you down. This would not be such a great idea. And they end up poetically, I might say, going in two completely different directions. Larry.
So I am actually fascinated by the two different directions aspect of this. I mean, in context, after Jacob steals his brother's birthright, he flees and goes and lives with his uncle and his family for 20 years, makes his fortune there. In the meantime, at least this portion doesn't tell us what Esau is doing during those 20 years, but it appears he's also been fairly successful because he doesn't need the gift and he's able to raise an army of men. And I think the brothers have realized that they can peacefully coexist if they sort of stay in their separate spheres. And that's, the notion that the brothers hate each other, I think, is an interesting one because uh, Jacob more fears than hates his older brother. Um, and we don't exactly know whether Esau's hate has mellowed into something else or not. But the story does seem to suggest that regardless of their emotions towards each other, they both realize that they can coexist.
Very good. Now, I cannot remember who was the third person. Who was next? Was somebody else that was next that I forgot?
I changed. I changed my mind.
You changed your mind. Okay. Yes, I agree. I mean, I also think that the rabbis give Esau a very hard time in their commentary. They're always making him out to be the bad guy. When you could read this in a more like, ultimately, what a nice guy he is. See, he's taking back that rotten brother of his, and they're at least making peace. But there's no such relief given by the rabbis. They frame him as the enemy. And what is also interesting is Esau is associated with Edom, the Edomites, and they are associated with Rome. So Esau essentially symbolizes Rome, and which is going to be the great enemy of the Jewish people in times to come. So this is all the commentary kind of comes from this point of view. And I think one of the lessons we can take from this is what is the right way? How do we deal with potential enemies or powerful people? What do we learn from this story? Donna.
You don't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
You offer your enemy a cup of cold water so you can watch them.
Okay.
You stay, like Mossad. You have to watch everything. Can't trust. Like Golda Meir said, you just can't let your guard down, and you have to. Sometimes, sadly, you have to like be near them to get, boots on the ground to get information so everybody can stay safer because you can't trust them. That's my take on it.
Very good. Marina, what do you think?
Based on this story, you bribe them and stay away from them.
Yeah, I got to agree. I've got to agree. Larry?
There's also an aspect of diplomacy here. I mean, right? All of these nice words and gestures that they are saying and making towards each other, whether they're true or not, they avoid a much more damaging conflict and allow them to coexist.
I would agree.
It's like making peace in the world.
Yeah, it's not that it's all going to be kumbaya and we sing along, but we kind of have to say the right things and do the right things so we can get along to, survive ultimately, everybody, without killing one another. Any other thoughts?
Yes, Donna, on the wall of the United Nations, let's take our war machines and turn them into musical instruments. Music does heal. And they had Israeli children and Palestinian children on America's Got Talent singing together. So maybe there's a hope.
I hope there's hope, but based on this group, I'm not sure. There's a lot of cynics out there.
Yeah, I see. Yes. I understand.
Unfortunately, I'm inclined to agree with you all. So I'm not much help either. Susie.
Going back, I'm just curious if anybody knows this. What was it after 20 years that made him change his mind and come towards his brother and everyone to make amends?
Excellent question. Does anybody know the answer?
I mean, why 20 years? Why not 15 years or 25 years?
Rabbi Stan.
Just indicating that in the normal world, when the hero goes out alone and, is willing to put his life on the line, that's great. But after 20 years, there's a whole family set of obligations, and it no longer is simple to be the hero charging at the dragon. You've got to be able to take care of all of your responsibilities. As, by the way, in peace, there's the same thing going on, that you can have your war and the war is devastating and you sign an agreement, you've made peace, but then what? You have to be able to build on that peace and find a future. Otherwise, the war resumes. And this is what's happening here. I'm not going to forget that I actually despise you, but we're going to go ahead and build because we have big responsibilities and we have obligations, and there is a better way to protect our future, and that's by making a relationship with you, whether I like you or not.
Right on, Rabbi.
Excellent. Very good. I see a new hand, Mark.
Thank you, Donna. A point I'm curious about in this is, early in the discussion, we talked about how, Jacob begged of God to not allow him to be destroyed so that Jacob could fulfill God's promise to Jacob of making, his progeny as limitless as the grains of sand on the seashore. And so in this, where Jacob seems to have to act on his own volition to do things, he seems like he's not walking in faith and believing that no matter what, God's plan will happen. Jacob seems to be saying, I need to do something to protect God's plan, to allow God's plan to happen, and so it kind of imputes this, how would I say this? We feel we are the ones that are responsible for what happens, but in the end, it's all God's plan. So, I'm curious about that, why Jacob just didn't release his worries and act and walk in faith that, this is what God promised him. And why does he need to do anything, other than walk in faith?
Well, don't we see throughout the Torah that God makes these promises? God's leading us through the wilderness. God's going to bring us to this good land. And the people do not have faith. They don't. And Jacob doesn't really have that great of faith either, as you rightly point out. But I think you can look at it another way. You can say, yes, I have faith that God's going to fulfill his promise, but I'm not going to be an idiot either. I'm going to do something constructive to help my own cause along. So it's kind of have faith, but build up the ammunition while you're having faith. Natalie, mommy.
Yes, I was thinking about Susie's question, and I was thinking about this answer for her and for myself. 20 years have gone by. At this point in time, when we look at these two brothers, we cannot be sure which one has the better life, which one has had a more successful life. If you think about it, Esau doesn't have any of the responsibilities of the land and the property and the family and all that anyone who is the head of a family has. He's been out there playing his games and with his animals, and he's now built up an army in 20 years. So when they come together now, it's not like one is so much better than the other. And in terms of negotiation, they're at a very different place. So I thought I'd just throw that in.
Well, they are twins. They're sort of, they're shadows of each
But I
other.
think it's more than that, is what I'm saying. It's what they've accomplished in 20 years.
Esau does have a family. Esau has quite an extensive family. So it's not that he has no responsibilities. We don't know, though. He doesn't have the responsibility of carrying the covenant.
That's what I meant. And the family responsibility of owning all this property and being responsible for the wealth of the family. He's been out there having himself a good time, it seems, to me, in comparison.
Okay. Marina, did you have your hand up? Can't see on my screen.
Yeah, I raised a hand, but then you answered what I was going to say, that Esau does have a family. I could also mention, in answer to Susie's question, why 20 years? Well, 14 years he was working for his two wives, and then he was supposed to work another 7 years to get free from all debts and take the livestock with him, but he left a little earlier, so it's 20 years and not 21, kind of. But that's kind of a chronology why he stayed away for so long.
Thank you.
Very good. Rabbi.
I just wanted to throw in that we have to be cautious in viewing their concern for God's will as we would view it today, as compared with how they understood it then. There wasn't a universal God controlling everything. And they had to deal with a local God, a regional God, but not the God who, if you make a good connection, will guard you forever. So they're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. And even in terms of their relationship with God, they don't know what will work.
Very important. We tend to think of monotheism as something that was always around from the time of Abraham, and it just isn't so. There were a lot of, I think the idea was, well, there are a lot of gods, but our God is the best God, not there's only one. So I completely agree. Brad.
Yeah, trying to put this discussion about God and to help me to understand that, and to go back to the phrase that you pointed out, Donna, about seeing your face is like seeing the face of God. I mean, that's a sentence that's really, it's really puzzling to me. In what sense would seeing the face be like seeing the face of God? I mean, there are philosophers that argue when you look at somebody's face, when you really look into their eyes, you sense their vulnerability, and you have this need then to help them, to reach out to them. But I'm just not seeing how looking at Esau's face is like seeing the face of God. And,
Well, I have a partial
how are we
possible
supposed to make
answer.
sense of that?
Prior to this encounter, we have a whole story that we didn't touch on, which is very important, where Jacob wrestles with a man, angel. Right. And so at that time, Jacob is right in contact with that being that may be from God. So he saw his face. And the rabbis sometimes interpret that wrestling with an angel as wrestling with Esau, not necessarily an angel or God. There are lots of interpretations for that. So, so that may be, I don't know, Rabbi Stan, maybe you can confirm or deny, but I think that's part of this whole thing of God's face, seeing God's face, not seeing God's face. Any thoughts? No? You're the expert. Nope. Okay. That's the best I can come up with, but it's a really interesting thing. And it's also kind of what you said, is that you look in somebody's face and that's when you see the spark of divinity that it is in a human being. You know, you can see their soul or whatever. So it may be that. I'm not sure. Donna.
I get on a human level, like I'm sure when Risha looks at Stanley and Stanley looks at Risha, or I look at my sweetheart, got that face, those eyes, clasped behind, beyond compare, that beautiful face. That's how what I see that song. That's how I feel about that. As far as seeing God's face, I don't know about that one. I mean, on a human level.
Okay. Well, it's also, I love the image in a way of these, not just the wrestling thing that comes from before, but when they embrace each other and they either kiss or bite each other, we're not sure which. It's like they're back in the womb together. You know, these are twins. So there's a symbolism there that's is also very poetic in a way, that they've come back to where they started from. Do we have any? Oh, yeah, don't know.
What is the Hebrew word for when a bride and groom kiss? That I want to know what that word is. Not this one, but the holy one, when your intentions are good and pure and you truly love someone. What is the Hebrew word for that kiss?
I'm not sure that there's anything different.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to defer to the Hebrew speakers in the room.
I'll look it up. Thank you.
Rabbi, do you know?
No, I did not hear the question clearly enough.
Is there a different word for kiss, for a kiss that you give under the chuppah as opposed to this bite
that's
kiss
still
thing?
nashak nashika.
Yeah.
Could you say that again, Rabbi?
It's as Donna said before, it's nashak or nashika. A nashika, even today in Israel on the streets, a nashika is a kiss.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Sometimes a kiss is just a kiss. And sometimes it's a bite on.
Not in my life, it ain't.
You could write a song about that, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that would work, but yeah, that's a good idea. Well, if there are no other final thoughts on this, thank you for this discussion, and we're going to do the Kaddish.
And Donna, this, from my perspective, was just excellent. Your leading and the fact that people responded, which is, the test. So, Mazal Tov.
Thank you, and I appreciate everyone's participation, which makes it a lot. Okay, so this week we are going to remember those who have passed away during this past month: Milford Elliott, Stanley Greenberg, Shala Leah Kohansame, Sharon Larson, Alexander Morris, Bill Tenenblatt, Melissa Aaron Victor, Phil Wise, and those who have died defending the United States of America and defending the state of Israel. Some yard sites that occurred during the past week. There are people who've died in the past. Abe Alex, Lee Bass, Irving Berman, Inger Bronston, Julius Brown, Mary Brown, Molly Birkin, Minnie Kaplan, Eugene Klaus, Sheldon Cohen, Michael Coleman, Priscilla Crombie, Harry Davis, Alvin Dishler, Hart Drayman, Helen Dresser, Marilyn Ehrman, Sam Enton, Manley Burton Feinstein, Evelyn Fern, Rachmil Fogel, Harvey Foreman, Harriet Freund, Linda Friedman, Ulrich First, Meyer Gerson, Miriam Goldfarb, Ethel Goldmark, Herbert Goldmark, Florence Goldstein, Mildred Gordon, Howard Godfried, Marion Grad, Joseph Matthew Green, Nathan Greenberg, Tuba Hakim, Jean Hartman, Naomi Leah Howard, David Warren Hudson, Bruce Jacobson, Max Jaffe, Tom Judah, Lottie Kahn, Robert Kane, Muriel Katz, Rose Kaufman, Estelle King, Newton King, Herman Klein, Sally Kleinbart, Julian Kleinman, Estelle Cleveland, Susan Kluge, Dorothy Koenig, Flora Kohan Bashiri, Ralph Kopolov, Elsie Cosman, Wendy Kramer, Jerome Kunick, Gertrude Landy, Gladys Liebner, Erna Lovis, Tilly Lubelski, Arthur Lurie, Jules Lustig, Wesley McDuxton, Gertrude Morantz, Herman Markowitz, Rita Medway, Alvin Miller, Sylvia Miller, William Morantz, William Motel, Evelyn Nathanson, Robert Newmeyer, Reyes Olgian, William Pashko, Ellen Paul, George Pines, Eliyahu Pirnazar, Eliyahu Pinazar, I guess a second time, Mary Prell, George Rains, Harriet Reed, Maury Redman, Sophia Reichwald, Meyer Romick, Seymour Rosenthal, David Salmonson, Dominic Savarine, Shirley Schwartz, Clara Siegel, Morton Seidel, Goldie Schaefer, Carl Shapiro, William Scher, Dorothy Slivkin, Elaine Small, Betty Stein, Jeanette Stein, Benjamin Touche, Martin Webster, Gary Weiner, David Yomtube, Gerald Young, and Millie Zlotov. And I apologize for any mispronunciations. And for all the other people we hold in our heart, and for those who have no one else to say Kaddish for them.
Somebody.
Sorry. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah. B'alma divra chirutei, b'amlich malchutei. B'chayachon v'yomechon, u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. B'agala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'alam olmea almayim. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar v'yit taleh v'yit halal shmei dekudesha b'richu le'elo min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Amen and Shabbat Shalom, and see you next week.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Have a great week. Under the huppah. I love it. Okay.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.